Hello there and welcome back to the channel. This is Mel's Gaming here with another The Hunter Call of the Wild video. Now in today's video we are going to be taking a look at something else that came with the most recent update, which is True Rack Kudu. Now honestly they look fantastic, but there's one other thing that I wanted to share in this video, and that is my favourite hotspot for Kudu on this entire map. Every single clip that you see in this video has been taken in this particular spot. So let's take a look at exactly where it is. We're right in the bottom left corner of the map, right above this outpost here, the Dari outpost. And right above it, if you head sort of north by a little bit northeast, there is a rest zone, and this Kudu rest zone is insane. Easily about 50 Kudu here on every multiplayer server I go on. Normally a rare or a diamond, sometimes multiple of diamonds, which you'll see in this video. There's just some insane stuff in this spot, and it's almost always unchecked in every multiplayer server I have joined. So let's take a look at some of the things I have found in this particular spot over the past couple of days, hunting for some diamond true rack Kudu. Now, I thought we will start off with a couple of rare females that I ended up finding along the way as well, because they are, of course, still rares and they are absolutely stunning. The rare Kudu are very, very beautiful, and they are actually quite hard to come across. You don't see an awful lot of albino or melanistic Kudu posted in the community, so I do like ending up finding any rares for the Kudu, and like I said, they are stunning. So we had one little female albino there, and you're going to see in this clip another female albino. And you will hopefully be able to see that every single clip in this video, as I said, is all taken in this specific spot. And you will hopefully see the just insane amounts of Kudu running around whenever I take a shot or I'm just trying to spot animals. And as you can see, we managed to drop that one as well. Been using the 7mm on these guys just because I'm enjoying using the 7mm Empress, and it's been doing a fantastic job at dropping these Kudu. But now let's move on to some more males rather than females in this video, because of course with True Racks the thing that gets impacted is the males because they have the horns, and obviously that's what I wanted most of this video to be about, but I couldn't leave out those couple of rare cows. But as you can see, walking up to that rest spot, spotting around, and one of the first things I see, this was actually the second server I joined in multiplayer, was a level 5 Kudu. That is my first ever level 5 True Racks Kudu, and let's just say I was completely blown away by how much better these things look. Now unfortunately you will quite often spook the Kudu as you try and move around through the brush, and normally they'll run up this little bit of a slope and then they'll just turn around and come back down once they've gone over the crest of it. And that's exactly what happened here. He spooked, ran up over that little ridge, and then came straight back down, which meant that I could then get a shot on him. And he just looked massive. I knew he wasn't, particularly huge based off of that estimate, as I knew it was around 151 that made diamond. And I could see that his max estimate was 154. So I didn't know if this guy was going to make it or if he was going to troll. But as soon as he stopped, managed to drop him there with a double lung shot from the 7mm. And then you can see the rest of that group fleeing. Honestly, it is such an insane amount of Kudu that actually show up here. I just honestly can't believe that it's not a more popular spot. I ended up finding this spot purely by tracking an albino about a month ago, and yeah, it's insane. But the first thing I noticed when seeing this guy on the ground is how much more detail is in these horns. You have the ridges lower down, and something that's really, really made these like a number one True Rack species for me is the ivory tips. And picking him up, he is a diamond at 152.10, so not a huge amount over diamond, but still an incredibly impressive looking animal. Just look at those horns. They are so much more realistic. It is incredible. So I knew it was around 151 that makes diamond. It's actually 151.6. So he had a decent-ish chance of making it, only a couple of points over on his estimate. And thankfully he did actually crack it and make it, which was really, really good. So my first ever level 5 True Racks Kudu did actually make diamond, and I was just stunned, so impressed. Like I said, these just look 110% better. They're so much more realistic. The smaller end diamonds do seem to have less of a deep curl and more of a shallow curl, but I actually think these look really good comparing them to some trophy lesser kudu that I've seen online that have been taken in real life. But those ivory tips to the horns are what makes these just one of the best tree rack species ever for me, because in real life, one of the features of a big trophy kudu, whether it's a lesser or a greater kudu, is those ivory tips. That is the sign of a nice mature bull. Now, moving on to a smaller but no less interesting kudu bull now, and you will have just seen me drop a level 3 albino. Now, this is actually a really good opportunity to take a look at what a smaller bull's horns look like with the tree racks, and I'm actually equally impressed by how a smaller bull like this looks as I was by the diamonds, because as I just mentioned, when you're looking for a big trophy kudu, so what we would think of as a diamond, you want those ivory tips. Well, this guy obviously is nowhere near the size of a diamond. He's not a massive mature bull. And if you notice, he doesn't have the ivory tips, which to me just sells it that this is a younger bull. And he's also a bit wonky as well, but with being uneven, he's actually got both horns being the same colour, which was something that I had a little bit of an issue with the black buck tree racks. I don't mind having the horns being wonky, but when they're not the same colour, it looks a little bit odd. So I'm really, really glad that that seems to be a thing with the lesser kudu, that their horns are the same colour. And like I said, a smaller bull, but no less interesting. Now, taking a look at another bigger bull I found this. That is a really big looking level 4 with a really huge estimate. And seeing as he was actually the biggest one I saw in this server, I decided I would take him and just see what he would end up scoring. Now, on the ground, he has got the really nice double curls there, almost going into a third spiral as those horns twist out again, and they're ivory tipped. So I was pretty confident that this guy had a good shot at making diamond, and he actually did, at 152.40. So not massive, but still a good bit over that diamond requirement. And it did actually take me by surprise that he did make it. I had heard reports that some level 4 kudu could actually get big enough to make diamond, and it's really interesting and cool to see that with the tree racks they can. And this guy really does have really nice looking horns, definitely similar to that smaller level 5 I shot in the beginning. So yeah, I think that's a really cool feature, and again, those horns just look so much better. Now, maybe they could have a slight bit more mass and maybe slightly deeper curls, but this isn't really too dissimilar, like I said, to ones I have seen online that have been posted as, you know, big trophies. And honestly, I don't mind it with the smaller ones looking like that, because we are actually going to get to compare those to some bigger rack diamond kudu. And I say rack because it is true rack. I know obviously these aren't racks of antlers, these are horns, but it is true rack kudu. So we're going to compare them to some bigger ones towards the end. And as you can see, found another level 5 in this spot, and again dropped him with the 7mm there. And something that I wanted to actually show, because this lighting was really good to show it, is how those ivory tips actually look. Because if you look, you can see like how they sort of fade in there with the brown, and actually how they're done is very realistic. It's not just like a white, like there's not like just a line where it suddenly becomes white. It's just very, very well done and very realistic, and I'm just super impressed by it. And this guy did also make diamond 152.40. So a lot of these ones are sort of going around the 152 area. And I was very intrigued at this point, after shooting a few of them being around the same score, what a really big one would look like if we start going into 154, 155, if there will be a significant difference in the horns. Because these guys have all been they're quite long and quite narrow, with fairly shallow curls, but really, really nice looking horns overall. But I wondered if perhaps there was a bigger style for, like, we'd normally say a bigger rack, like we say, or bigger horns, Cape Buffalo, you know, stuff like that. If there was a bigger horn style for these guys, for those higher scoring ones. And that's basically why I decided that I would just keep hitting this spot over and over in multiplayer, hoping that I could try and get one that had a slightly different horn style. Now, you'll see there that I, yet again, in this spot, found another level 5. And this is just, as I said, going through multiplayer servers. If you go into multiplayer and you go to this spot, I can guarantee you'll find something good within a few servers. Because it was like every other server I was finding something good. But, as I said, I was intrigued to see if there was a different horn style for these guys. If there was a bigger true rack style for them. And when I dropped this guy, I noticed immediately that there was something a little bit different. You can see this guy has a bit more mass to his horns, and those curls are a bit deeper. Now, he's only a 153.10, but I noticed there was some significant difference there. His horns just felt a little bit more heavy compared to the previous couple that we've looked at. And I was actually really intrigued by this, and this again made me want to see basically what the biggest one I could find was in about a day and a half of hunting them, because this showed me that there was definitely more than one look for the diamond kudu. And this guy in particular I really like. I do like that little bit of extra mass and that little bit of extra depth to the curls. I just think it looks really nice, and he's also a little bit wider, which is really nice to see. And it's just nice to see in general so much variety for their horn styles, because I think that something that could happen with, you know, trying to put them in a game is where they end up looking very similar to each other because they're all trying to follow the same, I guess, the same coding. But to see like slight but not huge differences like this, to me, was really nice. And again, I think that it just looks so much more realistic now. They're just a completely different animal. And something that I've been thinking about the entire time is, could we now see on a future map, could we see greater kudu? And could we see that these true racks sort of being adapted to then make greater kudu horns, which I think would be fantastic. Obviously, they'd need to be a lot larger with a lot more mass, and I think it would be incredible. And again, let's take a look at another smaller kudu that I ended up finding, but he is no less cool. This is a Melanistic kudu bull, and he is really nice looking, even though he is just a level 2. Now, I did actually find this guy in that rest zone that I've shown for every clip in this video, but unfortunately there was another player chasing me, and I basically had to spook this kite away and then track him down just to get him away from that other player. I unfortunately lost a pretty decent size albino because of another player chasing me only a couple of hours before this, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. And this is actually only the second Melanistic kudu I've seen on PC, and actually the first that I've managed to get, because the first one that I ended up seeing was unfortunately when the render bug was a thing, and it went just out of render and I could never claim it. So this is actually my first one on PC to actually get to put in the trophy lodge, so I was really happy with this find. And even though he is a smaller bull, obviously he's not that big, he still looks really good. My only criticism of these horns would be that the tips are just a little bit sharp. I think they just look a little bit too pointy, but other than that, fantastic looking smaller bull. And yes, again, at this rest spot, I was walking up the hill towards where they all rest, and I spotted a level 5 kudu. But when I actually saw where they were all resting, I saw not just one giant set of horns, but two. Two level 5 kudu resting in the same herd, only a few meters apart, and a pretty decent level 4 there as well. This was just incredible to see, and what ended up happening here was just, honestly, it took so long. I spent about 3 hours on these two kudu, because as I moved in, a female spooked, which ended up spooking the rest of them. And I waited, and one of the 5s came back, as you can see here, and I managed to drop him. But that other level 5, the one that actually had a slightly bigger estimate with 152 as the minimum, actually just never came back. And I had to wait for so long to get host of this server. I literally had to stay up until about 3 AM, because when I found these guys, it was about 1 AM. And then, that other one wouldn't come back. I couldn't track him because he wasn't leaving tracks. It was just awful, and I didn't expect to have to spend so long, but there was no way I was going to let an opportunity at double diamonds from the same herd go. But you can see this guy ends up making diamond at 152.40. So again, a little bit of a smaller one, but they just look, again, I keep saying it, I know I've rambled this entire video saying about how good they look, but they really do. This is just so much better than how they used to look. And finally, after so long of waiting to get host of this server, and a few time changes because he didn't come straight back when I changed the time, this guy finally showed up again. 152 minimum and up to 164. And as he led there, managed to put a single lung shot on him with the 7mm, and he went maybe like a meter before he actually fell over. And that was the end to such a long chase. But I actually kind of liked it because a big, wily kudu bull, whether it's lesser or greater, they are known as the grey ghost of Africa. They are a hard species to hunt. Again, whether it's lesser or greater, they are notoriously a hard species to get. And it was well worth it, because this guy was by far the biggest one I had shot at 155.9. And he definitely has different looking horns. They're a little bit wider, definitely a little bit more mass, and definitely deeper curls. And I am by far a bigger fan of this particular set of tree racks than the smaller ones. This is just, to me, looks so good. That is a trophy lesser kudu, if ever I've seen like pictures of them. That is a really beautiful looking example. And like I said, it was such a long chase and he was so worth it. I didn't know exactly how big he was going to be, but seeing that 155 pop up, I was really, really happy with that. Moving on to the next clip now, again, at this rest zone, you can see I'm spotting around here, looking at all these kudu as they move through the brush, and you can see right there is a level 5. Now, again, I ended up accidentally spooking this guy. It just happens a lot with this spot, unfortunately, and he did end up coming back, and I sort of ended up running around him, kind of looping back on him, because, again, there was another player pretty close, and I was trying to keep him away from that other player, but also try and get a shot on him, and finally managed to drop him right there in his tracks with the 7mm. And once again, this guy looked pretty big to me. He looked to have that bigger sort of style of horns. You can see how the ends sort of flare out, and I was pretty keen on seeing how big this guy was going to be. Again, a pretty long chase for this one, but I knew it would be worth it. And unfortunately, there wasn't a nice sky background, so decided to use the fur of this guy as the background. And picking him up a 155.10. So there definitely is a noticeable difference between the 155 scoring ones and the 152, 153 scoring ones, and I much prefer the higher scoring ones, which only does make sense because obviously a higher scoring one is meant to be a bigger trophy, and this guy is just an awesome, awesome looking bull. And I honestly think it's really, really good to see EW coming back to species like the lesser kudu that are a little bit older and just giving them these reworks, because this just makes lesser kudu a much cooler species to me, and definitely one that I'm more inclined to hunt more now they look so much better. Honestly, it's like giving them a whole new breath of life. So I decided for the very end of this video what we would do is take a look at some of the kudu we shot in this video in the trophy lodge and just compare some of the horns. So we're taking a look at both of the 155 scoring ones here. The one on the left is the 155.1 and the one on the right is the 155.9. Now, to me, it's weird because it almost looks like the 155.9 is a little bit smaller, but I can see that maybe he has a little bit extra mass in that as they go up through the horns, which I guess would increase the score. And when you compare that to the 152 scoring sets of horns, it doesn't really matter about the point, but the 152.4, the 152.3s, they're all very similar, and you can see how much shallower of a curl they have in comparison to those 155 area scoring ones. And then, of course, this is a legacy kudu set of horns for a diamond, and when you compare them, it's night and day with how different they look. Like this one on the right, which is the Legacy, it's just so much more like cartoonish and non-realistic compared to this one here on the left, which it's just everything about it is just 110 times better. Like I said, this just looks plasticky and not very realistic, whereas the new improved true racks are just so much more detailed, having all of the like ridges as they go up the horns, and then the lighting and everything is just so much better. Even on the smaller Kudu, like these two albinos, it's incredibly noticeable the difference between the Legacy and the true rack. And the true rack just wins every time. Such an incredible looking new true rack. And then, of course, let's take a look at the little Melanistic. And he is a little Melanistic. There's nothing, you know, he is Melanistic. That's the special bit about it to me. His horns look better than they would have done if he was a Legacy, so I'm actually really happy with that. Like I said, my only criticism with that particular true rack for the Melanistic is that it's just maybe a little bit too sharp at the end. But overall, I am incredibly impressed with the true rack Kudu. Honestly, props to EW. They've done a fantastic job on these. Definitely, I think my favourite true rack for the horned species so far. And definitely now I'm more inclined to go and hunt these guys and look for some more trophies. And I'm definitely going to put those diamonds up around the trophy lodge just because they're so much more impressive and more realistic now. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Hopefully I haven't rambled too much, as I know it's saying a lot of the same stuff over and over again as we look at different variations of the same thing. But hopefully you will have enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.